Hello and welcome to Bears TV. I'm here with Bears co-promoter Jitendra Duffill, and we're going to go through the supporter survey that we ran with you all about a month ago. Ben, how are you?
I got thanks, Ryan. You?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Looking forward to getting some speedway. So, fans sent in a few questions. I've got some collated answers here. One of the first ones we sent in was a possibility of moving the stand from where it is now to where the refs box is. Is there anything to be done about that?
That's a pretty huge upheaval to do that. So, unfortunately, not. I understand that obviously some people would prefer the stand to be in another place, but once that decision was made, there was no going back, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. Some fans have also mentioned that the speaker system near where the referee's box is situated can be a little poor. Is there any plans to implement to improve that?
There are actually. We can't promise that'll happen. We are limited by the equipment that we have, but if it's possible, we will do it. There are a couple of people who mentioned that there's quite a strain on our amp already, and with some of our plans that we have in place for 2021, we'll put it under further strain. We'll come to that a little bit later on, but yeah, that's been noted, and we are looking into what can be done about that at the moment.
One fan mentioned that they found the program, they don't buy a program anymore, as the content has, in their eyes, decreased over the years. And obviously we have some plans about the program this year. Would you like to explain that further?
Yeah, so when I took over as promoter, that was probably 101 things I wanted to change. Really, the program was one of them that I'd earmarked as an area we could improve. I feel we did make some improvements, but obviously not in everybody's eyes. But this year and for last year, we had plans to introduce new columnists and new features into the program, which is something that we are planning on doing this year, and increasing the content within the program. So yeah, absolutely, that's something we'd like to do. We're always looking to improve the program. So hopefully, yeah, that ticks the box for this individual and everybody else.
And Ben's even let me write, so I'm sure you'll all look forward to that. So some fans have asked if we can start dead on the dot at 19:30 hours to avoid late finishers getting home, etc., too late for the children.
Yeah, I think we do that, and the majority of times, certainly, in the last year that I ran a full season, that was a big priority of ours, and I feel that we hit that the majority of times. If not, I can only recall one time where I think there was a few people waiting to come through the turnstile, so we delayed it a little bit. But I completely understand that when people have got young kids, they don't want to be standing around waiting for too long and getting home too late. So there are always some delays that need to happen during a meeting, track grading being the obvious one. I think from a spectator point of view, it may be difficult to understand just how important that is, but we're always looking to keep the surface in tip-top condition, really, and the reason for that is we want good racing. The better the track surface, the better the racing will be. But we'll certainly look to avoid any unnecessary delays. That's for certain.
And of course, that brings us on nicely to a major signing for the Bears. About 2 months ago, it was announced that Jonathan Sweels will be our track curator. Obviously, we were over the moon to hear that news. I'm sure you were as well.
Yeah, we'd had conversations with Johnny since probably October, November last year, when we were aware that Terry wasn't going to come back. Probably even earlier than that. He was the obvious choice. He's local, obviously. For that reason, he's got reason to want to be here as well. He's got a long history in his family going back with Middlesbrough Speedway and obviously Redcar Speedway. His brother Jamie, of course, is promoter. So yeah, I guess we're just fortunate, that Newcastle didn't require his services anymore. There were one or two hoops to jump through with Jonathan's work, but fortunately we've been able to work around that. And big thanks to Johnny, because It's a big commitment for him, and he's a superb track curator. The track certainly won't see any reduction in the quality of its preparation, and we've come out of that really, really well. So I'm on board.
Would Jonathan be able to do our track if he was still required at Brough Park?
I think it would be a little bit too much strain on him. Most supporters, I can imagine, only really see Jonathan or any track curator when they turn up. So unless you had knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes, you maybe wouldn't understand just how much time it takes. But Jonathan will be there the whole day, probably a majority of the day afterwards, putting it right as well. So it's time consuming, and I think as he holds down a full-time job elsewhere, it would be impossible to commit to the more than one track. So, Newcastle loss is our gain. I'm really, really excited to have him on board.
Wonderful. A few fans have mentioned about our car park service. Obviously, it's not owned by the Bears, but is there anything you'd like to say on that?
Yeah, we did a support survey in 2019, and this was something that came up repeatedly. We are aware the surface is substandard. It's not ours, it's not part of our lease. It is a shared car park amongst the motorsports park. We did ask the council to improve it a few years back, and minor improvements were made, obviously not adequately. It's something that we're raising again with the council right now, but it's out of our hands, really. It's I guess I would urge anybody to write to the local council if they have concerns, because maybe we need a little bit of support on that one.
The more voices, the better. A lot of fans have asked about, would there be a possibility of more rider and fan interaction post meetings? And I would say before meetings, but I know riders are preparing for the meeting. So after meetings.
After meetings, absolutely. I mean, 2019, we started our press conferences in the bar. I appreciate not everybody wants to or can stay behind afterwards, because it does get a little late. But unfortunately, this year, it's going to look very difficult to do that because of restrictions imposed by COVID. Large gatherings indoors are going to be very difficult for the foreseeable future. So it may be difficult to do that. During the meeting, riders are pretty focused. Some are quite relaxed. I guess would be quite more than happy to mingle and to interact with our supporters. But I would say a typical Speedway rider is pretty focused and a pretty different person during the meeting. And I can understand why it would be difficult for them to do that. But looking long term, of course, that's something we encourage. I think that's one of the beauties of Speedway is, it's one of the few sports where the supporters can get close to the riders, and the riders really enjoy interacting as well. So long term, absolutely. And it's really good to hear that supporters want that. It's something we'll work on when we can.
Are the pits going to be opened after meeting in line with COVID rules? Is that going to be allowed for fans to come in?
Not immediately. Part of our risk assessment does include the pits area, and obviously that is one way in which I guess the risk of contracting COVID could be increased. So I know one thing that we all want, supporters, riders, and ourselves included, is to see Speedway and to see it safely. To do that, we've got to make some compromises somewhere, and I think the compromise is definitely better that we see Speedway and maybe a little less pit interaction than the other way around. We got to satisfy our local council, which we'll be working hard to do as well.
Wonderful. A lot of fans have mentioned that when the back straight has been open for meetings like the four-team tournament and the Knockout Cup and the playoffs, that it was a fabulous view. Are there any plans to open that for this coming season?
It's a really good point, and it was a fabulous view. It's always something that even before I was promoter and probably even team manager, I always thought would be a great addition to Redcar Speedway. We tried it last year when we anticipated big crowds for the Knockout Cup and certainly the late stages and the playoff semi-finals. This year, we have other considerations, and that's if we want to work to a good capacity or a workable capacity for us. We need to be able to provide social distancing within the stadium for the numbers that we're looking to attract. And to do that, I think it was essential that we had to make that move this year. I mean, it's come at considerable cost and time and effort, obviously, for us, but I think it'll be worth it. But I'm really, really pleased to announce that the back straight will be open for supporters in 2021 and long term. And it's a great view up there, and that will be open and ready for the start of the season.
That's fantastic news. I'm sure everybody over the moon to hear that. Some people have asked about having our own in-house food stand to hopefully generate more income for the club. Is there any news you can bring us on that?
There is, yeah. These were plans that, again, I talked earlier about things that I wanted to change when I came to the club. This was one of them. It seemed like a really obvious stream of revenue that we were missing out on. We employed the services of Chips and Things for several years, and they did a great job, and we had a great relationship with them. But we're a business, and it just made complete financial sense for us to try and bring that in-house. We've put a team in place to do that. We were hoping to open our new catering unit last year, but unfortunately, due to COVID, we couldn't do that. So really fortunate that we have a sponsor, Heartburn Garage, one of our new partners, is sponsoring the unit. So we will be doing our own food this year. We hope to concentrate on, quality food at a reasonable price and variety, so we can cater for everybody as well. So yeah, absolutely. And as the season goes on, we're an open promotion. We're really open to suggestions. So
it's great.
Hopefully we'll be happy.
Massive thanks to Heartburn Garage for that. I'm sure that's very helpful to you and the club. A few fans have asked about the possibility, I know this has come before, about introducing a National League team. Is there anything you can say on that?
I would love a National League team. I know Jamie and Jade would as well. A lot of people will be aware that Jamie Sweels has been involved with the youth at Redcar for a long time with the national, with the junior league. So it's something we've talked about previously, certainly in our future plans. The biggest challenge that we have as promoters, and probably a club, is that the three promoters we have, we're all volunteers. We all, because of that reason, have to work full time, and it means that we are challenged when it comes to time running the championship club alone. And with all the changes that we want to put in place to improve as a club, it's very time consuming. To take another league on would be very difficult, if not impossible, for us at this moment in time. So I guess we need to look at ways to try and change that in the future. Youth is really important. We're all really passionate at the club, about developing new British talent. A lot of people will be aware that we signed Alex Goldsborough as a club asset not so long back, which young, bright talent, and really pleased that we can bring him on board as a future asset. So it would be good for us to give him a place to race. But I guess watch this space. It's something we'd like, but at the moment, just not possible time-wise.
It's fair enough. Some fans have asked about more second half races. Is there any possibility that could happen?
It's unlikely. We have the Northern Junior League, which we're continuing this year. Jamie signed up his team. Gavin Parr, we got as team manager. So that gives us a few races after the meeting and meaningful races as well. Generally, we'll have one or two people come down and practice after the meeting, but Yeah, I think that's one area we do pretty well in. It's something that we've I think provided for quite some time now. So and don't forget we've got a curfew at 11 o'clock as well, so we can only race for so long. 10 o'clock,
Fair
sorry.
enough.
10 o'clock. 11 o'clock would be nice, though.
10 o'clock it is. Some fans have questioned whether the possibility of moving back to Thursday night. I know we have set race nights now, but was moving to Friday nights beneficial for the clubs in terms of attracting more fans to the venue?
Certainly our crowds in 2019 were up. It's difficult to put your finger on whether that was due to Friday nights or whether it was due to the success we had that year. I think a successful team will always bring a few more fans through into the ground. So it's difficult to say exactly. We do know that for people who have families, it was going to be easier because no school the next day, which is obviously easier if you've got young ones coming along. But it was really out of our hands. At the time there was a decision made that the Premiership were going to have fixed race nights, which were Monday and Thursday. We were unfortunate that we were one of the clubs who were victims to that and had to change our race night. At the time, Friday was our alternative race night, and it just seemed the natural choice for us. So, a choice that was enforced upon us, but I think certainly from the feedback I've had, it has been pretty positive. I think you'll always have people who miss the Thursday nights, and as somebody who grew up watching Middlesbrough Speedway and going along on a Thursday since I was in nappies, I can certainly relate to that sentiment. But times have changed, and I think Friday's working quite well.
Good to hear. Fan asked about any possibility of a Bears 4-nap development with live scores and statistics.
I thought a great idea and fantastic, and certainly something we've talked about as well. I have looked into the cost of apps, and it's quite a hefty expense. And I think certainly for the future of British Speedway, that's something we should be looking at. Not just for Redcar Speedway, but across the whole sport would be certainly a positive move for us. I think we've got that much we want to develop at Redcar Speedway when it comes to finances, which ultimately are always is the deciding factor. There are areas that money would probably be better spent, certainly initially. But I think to attract new fans, particularly the younger generation, apps, anything interactive, it's a must, and something. Hopefully, we'll see further down the line.
On the subject of interactiveness, British Speedway have just put out their first podcast, which I believe is hit #1 in the weekly sports on Apple, which is obviously fantastic. If you haven't caught that, please go and watch it. Some fans have asked about. Oh, sorry, Ben.
I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, I heard it. It was brilliant and fantastic news for British Speedway. So
yeah, it's good to interact with the younger fans who use them podcasts, and older fans as well. Some fans have asked about possibility of what's happened to the games at the interval. I participated in one once, but I didn't win anything. But I know fans really enjoyed that.
Yeah, we are looking well, and again, it's something we've discussed. Was for 2020. It's just putting a team in place really to organise and look after these things. So we have had discussions about. I won't say too much, but we have got plans that. Again, it always comes down to COVID and what we're allowed to do in the very immediate future. But again, great point. We're open from say 7:30 till 10 o'clock, and the races are a minute each, and there's certainly time in there that we can give people a little bit more value for money, and that's certainly something we'll be looking at. So, yeah, well, great suggestion, and COVID allowing. Watch this space.
Even though we did really well last season, one of my favourite memories was Roy winning the 50-50 and then nearly getting ran over by the tractor, celebrating.
Well, I'm glad he didn't, because that would have been a health and safety and insurance nightmare for us, and we'd be a presenter down as well. So, yeah, thankfully he avoided that.
Oh God, but he did win his money. So
fair play to Roy as well. I know he actually donated some of that back to the club.
that's great.
He's a great guy, and it's really good to have him. He's our adopted Geordie. Let's put it that way.
Going on to our second piece of bad news, Casper Anderson refused a work permit. How long has the club known about this, and what are we thinking about it? What are we going to do?
We knew obviously Casper was applying for his Frontier worker permit. We were led to believe, and certainly in theory, it was just a given because he'd worked here previously. We don't know exactly why he was refused for it. If you look at the legislation and all the criteria from the government, it does get a little bit confusing for your average, I guess, person. So it was a big blow to us and to Casper. We found out it was earlier this week, obviously, that had been refused. There were further issues as well with Casper in that, travel between, countries, between in and out of the UK is going to be difficult. It comes with major challenges at the moment. Last year, there were exemptions for elite sportsmen, which meant they could move in and out freely. It doesn't work that way anymore. People need COVID tests either side, isolation when they get here as well. And with Casper's plans to obviously race in Denmark, and COVID tests are not cheap, believe me. The expense, the difficulty, and even the possibility was really working against us. And I guess the work permit was just the final blow. And we spoke to Casper on Monday. He understood. We both know that this is circumstances. It's nothing that either party have done. We know we waited as long as we could, I guess. And what we didn't want to do is wait any longer and find ourselves on the eve of the season. A couple of riders down, and it was just time, unfortunately, that we had to make a decision and move on. Gutted for Casper, gutted for us. He's a young lad who not only fits in really well, but he's got huge potential. He's a big loss to us. There's no doubt about that. And I'm sure that a lot of fans will be upset with, both him and Eric, popular riders. How do you replace those two? But we'll do our best. We're a really ambitious promotion. I think we've proved that. We're not here to make up the numbers. Rider availability at the moment, it's a challenge for everybody. Newcastle made an announcement, just last week that, they've had to part ways with Klaus Vissen, similar situation to us, and Casper Anderson. And they've come in several points under the limit. Scunthorpe have announced Josh McDonald. I think Birmingham are a couple of points under. I still feel that there might be, one or two more casualties before the start of the season. So, it's up to us as a club to do our best to put a lineup that we can be proud of together. And, waiting a little bit longer is definitely our best option. We are speaking with several riders, including heat leaders. I think with the situation in Europe at the moment, which is not good with COVID, the UK is 100% becoming a much more attractive proposition. And I just have a gut feeling that if we wait a bit longer, someone will bite. It's our best option, and I understand the frustration and possibly even the impatience from some people to get that team signed up. We're impatient too, but waiting's our best option. And even if it means announcing the last signing a week before the season, if it means that we get the rider we want and we have a better season, it'll be worth it. So I just ask our supporters to be patient and to keep the faith, and thank you for that.
In an ideal world, are you able to share what are we looking at? Are we looking at a 8-9 point rider and then another reserve to go in with Jordan Jenkins and Anders to move up to number 2? Or are we looking for 2 similar average riders?
Well, we've got flexibility. Obviously, with the points we've got left over now, I think it's around about 11.5. So it all depends on rider availability. You know, in a normal season, there might have been 5 or 6 riders that fit the bill. Right now, there are very few. So we're a little bit at the mercy of rider availability rather than the other way around. But you're right, it does give us that flexibility. So I guess it's easier to make those pieces fit into the jigsaw puzzle now, whereas before, you know, we had one amount to work with for that one rider. So who knows? Hopefully it'll work for us. We'll see.
Are we actively in discussions with riders at the moment?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
I know it did cross my mind, and maybe it's crossed a few fans' minds. Is there any possible chance we won't run in this season?
Certainly not from our side. We're fully committed to a season. Always have been. The one thing that nobody can guarantee is what we're allowed to do. The government sets those rules. So you know, we are at the mercy of a pandemic at the moment. So we'll see. But things are looking really positive at the moment. You know, the vaccine rollout in the UK is just, you know, streets ahead of most of the world, and certainly Europe. If you look at the situation there, it doesn't even compare. So that's certainly a huge plus for us. And at the moment, yeah, I'm really confident that we'll start on May the 30th, and I can't guarantee that, but I'm certainly in a position where I would say that I'm going to be surprised if we don't.
I know you'd also really like the fans to thank the fans for all participating in this service. Gave you a lot of ideas, a lot of information.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. You know, I hope our supporters know just how much we value them. That's the reason that we did this, and you know, it's important for us to know what our customers think, because at the end of the day, you know, that's what we're here for, is to entertain and to give them a product that they're proud of. So we'll keep working at that. You know, I appreciate that everything's not perfect at Redcar Speedway. We are bound by, you know, financial constraints and certainly as promoters, probably our time more than anything else. But you know, with the time and money we have, you know, everything's going back into the club. Always will. That's you know, number one priority, and certainly a team to be proud of. And one thing that was brought up on the survey quite frequently were suggestions of, you know, stadium improvements. You mentioned the grandstand being moved, but obviously additional seating, coverage over the stadium, you know, just general improvements for the facilities throughout. Really, really good suggestions. You know, it's probably the one thing that we could do to improve everybody's experience at Redcar Speedway. But I'm sure everybody appreciates these things, that they come at significant cost. And yeah, that's just the one barrier that we come across time and time again. And you know, we're making subtle improvements. So we're opening the back straight on catering units there now. The grandstand went in a few years ago. So I hope people know that we are committed to you know, making improvements and upgrades to the stadium and ultimately their experience. So you know, we're committed to that. It's just as and when.
Right. Thank you for your time, Ben, and thank you for everybody for tuning in to Bears TV. Hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thanks, Ryan.